Well, it's outrageous. Calderon has now given his speech to the Congress. I have the text of it. Paul Watson has an article up on prisonplanet.com. He attacked the Second Amendment. Not only is a foreign dictator who wasn't elected, that's on record, who set up a total police state, a narco-terrorist state that's waging a war against other cartels that aren't laundering money through U.S. banks. Not only is he here telling 30 million illegal aliens to politically rise up in our country, a foreign leader with a group of people that see themselves as foreigners, he now wants our Second Amendment and is blaming violence in his repressed country where no citizen can own guns on our Second Amendment. And we are defeating the establishment right now peacefully with political information. That's why Cass Sunstein and Kagan and all these globalists are saying, censor the internet, censor free speech, shut us down. Because they can't get away with this if our voices are being heard. And so they're now coming out, conditioning and acclimating and testing the water, sending up trial balloons to openly shut down free speech. And every time the media calls me, they say, are you causing violence? Are you going to cause violence? Which we're speaking out against violence. But what does it lead to when they say we're going to start arresting you and disappearing you into a gulag or worse, and no one will even know we took you? I mean, that's in the legislation. That's being promoted. And then it leads us to the point of when the secret police are coming to drag you away, then people are going to be forced to physically resist. That's why Oath Keepers is so important. That's why we're reaching out to military and police right now like our lives depend on it, because they do. Listen to this. This is the Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Won the Nobel Prize. Ronald Reagan praised him. For anybody demonizing him, again, this is somebody praised by our government. Of course, that was 25, 30 years ago. Not anymore. He's demonized now. And how we burned in the camps later thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family? Or if, during periods of mass arrest, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, some estimates are almost half, but that was in one period. Or if during periods of mass arrest, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, pawing with terror at every bang of the downstairs door, at every step on the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of a half dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else they had at hand. The organs would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers in transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough. And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. So, here's the article. It's up at Infowars.com, prisonplanet.com. It's also at GCNlive.com. This is up at GCNlive.com. It's important to get this article out to everyone. Dictator of failed state lectures Americans about freedom. Dear Mr. Calderon, get the hell out of the U.S. That is the subheadline I had Watson write by Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones. We wrote this together this morning. Americans were once again forced to endure the dictator of a failed state which represses and subjugates its citizens as a matter of course, lecturing the U.S. about how his people were being discriminated against yesterday when unelected Mexican President Felipe Calderon bashed the Arizona illegal immigration law. Calderon commented, such laws as an Arizona law is forcing our people to face discrimination during a White House meeting. Calderon later attacked the Second Amendment in a speech to the U.S. Congress. Get out of our internal affairs. Quit using a political weapon against us. This is treason. This is sedition. This is an invasion. This is a foreign leader trying to invoke sedition in our country. Blaming Mexico's spiraling drug violence on guns being smuggled from inside America, though the studies show over 90% are being bought by the Army and then sold, while failing to mention the fact that the lax border security, something he vehemently supports, but only on American borders, is the primary cause of the problem. And he says Calderon's use of the term our people is a slap in the face of every American and every Hispanic American who has immigrated legally. Since when did the leader of a foreign nation address his own constituency from within an entirely different country? If the millions of illegal aliens living in America see themselves as Mexicans, then why do they insist on staying in the U.S. illegally? Well, because they say this is Mexico. Well, but if the Mexican system's so good, why don't you stay in Mexico then? Now, expanding on that, we played a video clip earlier, and I don't know if Watson has this in the article, where Obama said, we've gone past our borders. We're one country. I mean, that is treason. Going back to Charlie-Veitch of the Love Police, they're doing the same thing in England, bringing in masses of foreigners who are just human beings too, but then playing them off against the rest of the people in the country as a political weapon and as a tool of balkanization. What's your view on that?
Absolutely, Alex. I'm happy you brought that up, because in many of my films, many of the commenters notice how the most aggressive physically people are the non-native British. And as you say, they're human beings as well. But these are people from Rwanda or from Sudan or from Serbia, Bosnia, who've been through a war zone. And now they've been given a police community support officer with police powers uniform. And they are violent. I've never had a native gentleman Englishman, policeman hit me, but I have had security thugs from Eastern Europe and from Africa, you know, God bless them, but they let
me just interrupt again. I had a member of parliament on a few months ago, and he admitted that over half of the CPS workers kidnapping kids are foreigners as well who can't even speak English. So we know what this is. Bring in foreigners, give them uniforms, make them the military and the police, and they'll do whatever they're told.
Absolutely, Alex. And one thing I think is very important for me to say, because a lot of my friends are saying, oh, Alex Jones is a fearmonger. Alex, you're not a fearmonger. You give the information truthfully. You work on fact, and it's in the eye of the perceiver whether they are scared of it or not. We are in a battle right now. We are at the brink, and self-defense is very different from offense. I just wanted to say that.
Well, it is scary to say there's a world government that plans to implode economies by design by selling fraudulent derivatives to governments and then loaning the governments more fiat money. It is scary they're putting poison in the water. It is scary they launched 2 illegal wars and are about to go into Iran. It is scary that they're setting up this police state and bringing in foreigners to rule over us. It is scary that tens of trillions have been stolen and the whole world is on the verge of financial collapse. I mean, again, that's a childlike mind that thinks that I'm saying something, so that creates the fear. If I live in a valley and a huge dam breaks and the alarms go off saying, get out, you've got 5 minutes, 30 feet of fast-moving water is coming, it will kill you, am I a fearmonger if I get on the radio of a dam broke and told people get to high ground?
No, you're not. And were those people in the Warsaw Jewish uprising, were they fearmongers for telling the other Jewish people that the Nazis were coming to kill them? Were they fearmongers for rising up against the Nazis in the last bid attempt to save their lives and their friends' lives? No, they're not. They were just looking at the truth and acting as a decent, you know, as a kind of conscious human being should. And that
versus all the other footage we've seen of Jewish families and others. They'd separate the kids and send them off to be killed, and they'd run the women into pits naked, the men into pits, and shoot them. And the next group, seeing them being herded in to be shot, would still run right in like gentlemen to be killed. That's not going to happen with me. I'm not running into any pit. I mean, at the moment of watching people's heads being, and I saw footage from Nigeria about 2 months ago. In fact, Burmis has it. Will you ask him to bring us that footage? And they're bringing people in the middle of the town square, having them lay down, and then shooting them. And these guys could have run. They could have fought. I mean, I'm an extremist that I'm saying I'm not going into a pit to be shot.
No, David. Sorry, Alex. Yes, I'm actually, I spoke to a lady who ran to be a member of parliament, and she told me that I am on a domestic extremist list. So I need to have a few days notice if there is going to be a roundup, because they would round me up, of course. And just like you, I would also do everything I could right now, because in Britain we do not have big trains taking people away to camps. So right now the best way I can see us fighting this is just to raise awareness and raise the consciousness, raise the humanity in people.
No, they just slowly arrest people and then you get processed into the jail. That's how this works now.
Yeah, it's very scary when we realize we are living in those crazy films that we never thought would come true. But this is reality now. This is actually happening. And I wish people could see this. And I wish people would stop projecting their own fears onto us, saying that we are fearmongers for talking about this. All we're doing is saying this isn't how it should be.
They're on the news in England and the U.S. saying they want to be able to arrest us and there be no record of where we went and that we can even be tortured. Now, that's bona fide oppression. That's bona fide evil to the max, and they're trying to sell it as if it's acceptable. We must speak out against it. And the good news is the people are starting to listen. But I interrupted you. Go back to this point, because I've been questioned in England. If you even talk to anybody on the street, that is criminal because you're all prisoners. Steve Watson's, who lives in London, it's happened to him going to a concert with his girlfriend. They do this to everybody now, and describe foreigners in uniform hitting you.
Yeah.